What if I told you, a hungry boy with no money, no phone, and no idea who he was helping, made a choice that changed a Hollywood legend's life forever? On a rainy night, while everyone else walked away, one poor kid stopped and unknowingly saved Keanu Reeves. But that wasn't the real twist. The real story begins with who was watching from the shadows, a powerful heiress with a legacy that would change this boy's future forever. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you never miss an update. Now, let's dive into what really happened. Nobody noticed the poor boy standing in the rain until he made a decision that would change 3 lives forever. It was a cold evening in Los Angeles, the kind where the city feels quieter than usual. Rain had washed the streets clean, and yellow streetlights reflected softly on the wet road. Cars passed slowly, their headlights blurring through the mist. Most people were in a hurry to get home, their minds focused on warmth and comfort. 13-year-old Eli Carter stood outside a small convenience store near the corner, shivering slightly. He pulled his thin jacket closer around his body, though it barely helped. Eli lived with his sick grandmother in a tiny apartment just a few blocks away. Money was always tight. Every day after school, Eli collected empty bottles and cans to earn a few dollars. That night, he had made just enough to buy a loaf of bread for dinner. As Eli started walking home, his shoes splashed lightly through puddles. He was tired, hungry, and thinking about his grandmother waiting for him. Then suddenly, the quiet night was broken. A sharp screech of tires echoed down the street. Eli froze. A moment later, he heard a deep groan of pain coming from a narrow alley nearby. His heart began to race. He turned his head and saw a man lying on the ground, clearly injured and struggling to move. Rain soaked the man's clothes as he tried, and failed, to push himself up. People nearby noticed, but they didn't stop. Some glanced quickly and looked away. Others walked faster, pretending not to see. In a big city, everyone assumes someone else will help. But Eli didn't. Without thinking about the cold, the rain, or the risk, Eli ran toward the alley. He knelt beside the man, his small hands trembling as he tried to understand what had happened. The man was tall, with a beard, his face pale and strained. His breathing was heavy and uneven. "Sir, can you hear me?" Eli asked softly. The man opened his eyes slightly, clearly in pain. Eli didn't know his name. He didn't know he was famous. He didn't know the world recognized this face. All Eli knew was that this man needed help. And in that moment, a simple choice, made by a poor boy with nothing to gain, set into motion a chain of events that would change everything. Eli knelt beside the man, his heart pounding so loudly he could hear it in his ears. Rain continued to fall softly around them, soaking the ground and darkening Eli's worn sleeves. He had no phone in his pocket. No money to offer. No idea who this man was or how serious his injuries might be. But in that moment, none of that mattered. He knew one thing, and one thing only. This man needed help. "Sir, please don't move," Eli said gently, his voice shaking but determined. He remembered a short safety video his teacher once showed in school about staying calm and keeping injured people still until help arrived. Eli took a deep breath and tried to steady himself. The man winced in pain. His head was bleeding, and his face looked pale under the streetlight. He had been pushed during a robbery attempt, hitting his head hard against the pavement. Everything felt blurry to him. He tried to speak, but the words barely came out. Eli acted without fear. He carefully tore a clean strip of cloth from the inside of his sleeve and pressed it softly against the wound, just like he had seen in the video. Then he stood up and sprinted into the nearby convenience store, rainwater dripping from his hair. "Please, call an ambulance." Eli pleaded with the cashier. "A man is hurt outside." The cashier didn't hesitate. Within seconds, emergency services were on the line. Eli ran back into the rain and returned to the man's side. He stayed close, kneeling beside him, talking quietly so he wouldn't fall asleep. He told him simple things, about the weather, about his grandmother, about how help was coming soon. "It's going to be okay," Eli whispered, even though his hands were still trembling. He gently held the man's hand, refusing to leave him alone. Minutes later, the sound of sirens filled the air. Paramedics rushed in, quickly taking control of the situation. They praised Eli for acting fast and doing the right thing. As they carefully lifted the injured man onto the stretcher, he turned his head slightly and looked at the boy beside him. His eyes were filled with gratitude. "Thank you," he said quietly. "You saved me." Eli smiled nervously, unsure how to respond. He simply nodded and stepped back, watching the ambulance doors close. He had no idea that this single, fearless choice, made in the rain, was about to open doors he never imagined possible to the hospital. The news of the remarkable incident spread quickly. Among those who heard was Isabella Monroe, a private philanthropist and business heiress who carefully avoided the public spotlight. Few people knew about her connection to Keanu Reeves. They had grown up together, sharing memories of childhood and family holidays. For Isabella, Keanu was not just a famous actor, he was like family. But Isabella's influence went far beyond her social circle. Her family had built a quiet, lasting legacy, funding schools, shelters, and emergency programs across the country for decades. She believed in helping others, especially those who showed courage and compassion when no one was watching. In her eyes, small acts of kindness often revealed the true measure of a person. When Isabella learned about the young boy who had bravely saved Keanu Reeves without even knowing who he was, she felt compelled to meet him. The idea of such selfless courage touched her deeply. This was not just heroism in the public eye, it was real, raw, and human. The next morning, Eli sat nervously in the hospital hallway. His worn-out shoes squeaked slightly against the polished floor. He hadn't slept much and was still shivering from the rainy night, unsure of why he had been called to meet someone so important. Isabella approached quietly. She did not wear any extravagant jewelry or designer clothing. There was no hint of arrogance, no sense of superiority. Instead, she knelt to meet Eli at his level, her eyes kind, warm, and encouraging. Her presence was calm but magnetic, immediately putting the young boy at ease. "You're very brave," she said softly, her voice gentle but filled with admiration. "Why did you help him?" Eli looked down at his hands, still a little nervous. After a pause, he shrugged and said simply, "Because he needed it." That short, honest answer stayed with Isabella. In that moment, she saw something rare, pure, unselfish courage. There were no expectations, no desire for recognition. Just a young boy acting on the instinct to do the right thing. For Isabella, this encounter was a reminder of why her family had spent decades quietly helping others. True courage could be found in the most unexpected places, and sometimes, the smallest act of kindness could change lives forever. What Eli didn't know that rainy night was that his simple act of kindness had activated something far bigger than he could have imagined. By helping the injured stranger without hesitation, he had drawn the attention of someone who understood courage and selflessness on a much deeper level. Isabella Monroe, moved by his bravery, began to uncover Eli's life story. She learned about his sick grandmother, who struggled to make ends meet in a tiny apartment. She learned how Eli worked tirelessly every day to pay for school fees, yet still dreamed of becoming a doctor to help others. Each detail painted a picture of resilience, determination, and a heart that refused to be broken by circumstances. Then Isabella discovered something even more remarkable. Eli's late father had been a firefighter, a man who gave his life saving others. That same courage, that same instinct to help without thinking of reward, ran in Eli's blood. It was a legacy of bravery quietly passed down, waiting for the right moment to be recognized. Determined to support the boy and his family, Isabella used her foundation to make a difference. She arranged the best medical care for Eli's grandmother, ensuring she received the treatment she needed without financial worry. She secured Eli a full scholarship to a private school, opening doors to education that had once seemed impossible. She also helped his family move into a safe and comfortable home, giving them stability and peace of mind for the first time in years. But Isabella didn't stop there. Once Keanu Reeves had fully recovered, he personally visited Eli. This time, there was no confusion, no fear, just gratitude. He embraced the boy warmly. "You reminded me what being human really means," Keanu said softly, his voice filled with sincerity. In that hug, Eli felt the true weight of his actions. A single choice had inspired people far beyond himself. Together, Isabella and Keanu launched a youth program inspired by Eli's courage. The initiative aimed to support underprivileged children who, like Eli, showed selfless bravery. It became a way to nurture kindness, courage, and hope in the next generation. Eli didn't gain fame or wealth overnight. Instead, he received something far more valuable: opportunity, dignity, and the belief that he could shape his own future. His small act of bravery had set off a chain reaction, proving that courage and compassion are the truest forms of power, and that one selfless moment can change many lives forever. Years had passed since that rainy night, but the memory of it still shone brightly in Eli's mind. The shy, worried boy who once ran into the rain to help a stranger had grown into a confident young man. Now, standing on a stage in front of thousands of children, he shared his story, not of fame or fortune, but of courage, compassion, and the quiet power of doing the right thing. "I didn't help a celebrity," Eli said, his voice calm but full of emotion. "I helped a human being." The audience was silent for a moment, taking in the simple truth of his words. In that silence, they understood something important. True heroism is not measured by recognition, wealth, or fame. It is measured by the heart and the courage to act when it matters most. From the crowd, Keanu Reeves watched, smiling warmly. His eyes reflected pride and gratitude. Standing beside him, Isabella Monroe observed quietly, a soft smile on her face. She had always believed that acts of selflessness deserved attention, but she also knew that the real reward was not praise, it was the ripple effect of kindness and courage. Eli's story reminded everyone that night of a timeless truth. You don't need power, money, or influence to make a difference. Sometimes, the smallest acts, simple, unnoticed, and done without expectation, can create the largest impact. He recounted how a single choice, made in the rain on a quiet city street, had changed his life and touched the lives of others in ways he could never have imagined. The boy who once worried about bread for his grandmother now stood before a crowd inspiring a generation, showing them that courage and compassion can overcome any obstacle. And somewhere out there tonight, Eli concluded, his eyes scanning the audience, another unseen hero may be making a choice, one that will change lives forever. The applause was thunderous, but Eli's message was clear. Being a hero doesn't require fame or glory. It requires heart, bravery, and the willingness to act when it matters most. That rainy night had proven it. One small act, one brave choice, had set in motion a story that would inspire countless others, reminding the world that every act of kindness has the power to change lives forever.